On the afternoon of February 3rd, 1998, 8-year-old Maddie Clifton stepped outside her home to play, never knowing it would be the last time she would be seen alive. What began as an ordinary day would soon turn into one of the most heartbreaking cases the community had ever faced. Today, we're taking a closer look at the case of Maddie Clifton and uncovering what truly happened to her. And if this is your first time here, welcome to the channel. We cover real murder cases, both past and present, told with facts, care, and respect. Let's begin with the day Maddie Clifton went missing and how a normal afternoon turned into a community-wide search. February 3rd, 1998 began like any ordinary school day in Jacksonville, Florida. The morning moved quietly, without warning that it would soon turn into a nightmare. 8-year-old Maddie Clifton finished her classes and walked home in the afternoon, a route she had taken many times before. The neighborhood was familiar, calm, and full of people she trusted. That afternoon, Maddie was last seen riding her bicycle near her home. The sun was still up. There were no screams, no obvious signs of struggle, and no reason for immediate alarm. Hours passed, and when Maddie failed to return home, concern began to grow. At first, it felt like a delay. Maybe she was playing with friends. Maybe she lost track of time. But as daylight faded into evening, worry turned into fear. Her parents searched nearby streets, calling her name, checking with neighbors and friends. No one had seen her come home. No one could explain where she went. Her bicycle was later found abandoned, a silent detail that changed everything. This was no longer a case of a child staying out too late. By nightfall, police were contacted. Patrol cars moved through the neighborhood as flashlights swept yards and alleyways. The sense of urgency spread fast. A child had vanished without explanation in a place where nothing like this was supposed to happen. And as the hours stretched on, one terrifying question lingered in the air. How could a child disappear so completely in broad daylight, so close to home? That question would haunt everyone involved as the search intensified and as the truth began moving closer than anyone imagined. To understand why this disappearance shook the community so deeply, we must first understand who Maddie Clifton was. Maddie Clifton was more than a missing child's photo on a flyer. She was an energetic, bright 8-year-old with a personality that filled a room. Friends described her as playful and curious. She loved riding her bike, laughing with classmates, and spending time close to home where she felt safe. She lived with her parents in a working-class neighborhood where families knew one another. Maddie was raised in an environment built on trust in neighbors, trust in routines, trust that home was a place of protection. Like many children her age, she believed the world around her was mostly good. School staff remembered her as polite and engaged. There was nothing unusual about her behavior in the days leading up to her disappearance. No signs of fear, no warnings, nothing that suggested danger was waiting. That normalcy is what made the case so disturbing. Maddie did everything right. She followed the same route home. She was in familiar surroundings. She was doing what she had done countless times before. Yet something went terribly wrong. Her age made the situation even urgent. An 8-year-old cannot simply vanish on her own. Investigators knew early on that time mattered and that the person responsible was likely nearby, possibly someone Maddie recognized. As her photo spread across news broadcasts and missing person posters, the image of her smiling face became a symbol of innocence interrupted. The community didn't just want answers, they needed them, because the question was no longer if something terrible had happened, but how, where, and by whom. As fear tightened its grip, Maddie's parents and neighbors refused to sit still. The search for her began immediately. From the moment Maddie was confirmed missing, her parents went into action. Panic gave way to determination. They walked the streets again and again, knocking on doors, asking the same question, "Have you seen my daughter?" Neighbors joined without hesitation. Flashlights cut through the dark as yards, sheds, and nearby wooded areas were checked. Volunteers formed search lines. Some people searched out of hope, others searched out of fear that the worst had already happened. Flyers were printed and distributed within hours. Maddie's name echoed through the neighborhood as people called out, hoping for a response that never came. Every bicycle tire mark, every sound, every shadow felt significant. Police coordinated with the family, expanding the search radius. Canvassing teams went door to door. Residents were questioned gently at first, then more carefully. No one was ruled out, but no one stood out either. What made the situation especially unsettling was how close everything felt. Maddie hadn't vanished near a highway or a remote area. She disappeared steps from home. That meant the answer was close. Too close. As exhaustion set in, the neighborhood grew quieter, heavier. The realization began to sink in that this wasn't a runaway or a misunderstanding. Something deliberate had happened. And while parents hugged their own children a little tighter that night, investigators began preparing for the next phase, one that would focus less on searching and more on uncovering the truth. With no clear leads from the Brown search, law enforcement shifted toward investigation and suspicion. As hours turned into days, police escalated the case. Detectives analyzed timelines, retraced Maddie's route, and interviewed anyone who had contact with her that afternoon. The focus quickly narrowed to the immediate neighborhood. Statistically, investigators knew the harsh reality. When a child disappears close to home, the offender is often someone nearby. That meant neighbors, acquaintances, even people the family trusted were quietly evaluated. Suspicious behavior became critical. Inconsistencies in statements, changes in routine, unexplained injuries, nothing was overlooked. One resident in particular began to raise questions. His story didn't quite align with the evidence. As pressure mounted, local authorities requested assistance from the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Federal resources helped analyze behavioral patterns, offender profiling, and case coordination. This was no longer just a local missing person case. It was a potential abduction and homicide. The neighborhood felt the tension immediately. Police presence increased. Patrol cars parked outside homes. Conversations stopped when officers walked by. Behind closed doors, detectives compared notes, building a profile of someone who blended in, someone who didn't look like a monster. And as investigators closed in, they had no idea how close they already were to the truth, or how horrifying it would turn out to be. That truth would come to light in the most devastating way possible. The discovery came not in a distant field or hidden forest, but inside a home on Maddie's own street. On February 10, 1998, 7 days after Maddie vanished, police returned to a neighbor's house to follow up on lingering suspicions. Inside a bedroom, officers noticed something deeply disturbing: a strong odor, a waterbed that appeared unnaturally elevated. When they lifted the mattress, The investigation ended and the nightmare became real. Maddie Clifton's body was found concealed beneath the bed. The realization stunned even seasoned investigators. For an entire week, her body had been hidden just feet away from daily life continuing as normal. The suspect was immediately taken into custody. His calm demeanor collapsed under questioning. Confronted with the evidence, he confessed. The arrest sent shockwaves through the community. Parents reeled. Neighbors struggled to understand how something so horrific could happen so close by someone so ordinary. Maddie had not been taken far away. She had never left the neighborhood, and the person responsible had been watching the search unfold, knowing the truth the entire time. With the discovery made and the suspect identified, the focus shifted to one final question: who was capable of doing this? The man responsible was Joshua Phillips, a teenage neighbor who lived just steps from Maddie's home. At first glance, he appeared unremarkable, quiet, reserved, and largely unnoticed. But behind that exterior was a deeply troubled individual. Investigators learned that the crime began after a violent encounter involving Maddie and a baseball bat. What followed was a series of decisions driven by fear, control, and the desire to avoid consequences. Instead of seeking help, Phillips hid the truth, concealing Maddie's body and pretending nothing had happened. He continued daily life as if nothing were wrong, even as search parties gathered outside his home. Psychological evaluations later revealed disturbing traits: lack of empathy, emotional detachment, and an ability to compartmentalize extreme violence. He wasn't a stranger. He wasn't a shadow in the dark. He was a neighbor. The case now moved from investigation to justice inside a courtroom where facts would replace fear. The trial was swift but emotionally devastating. Prosecutors laid out the timeline, the confession, and the physical evidence. The defense attempted to argue youth and emotional instability, but the facts were overwhelming. Maddie's family sat through every detail, reliving the loss they could never escape. In the end, Joshua Phillips was convicted of first-degree murder. The sentence reflected the severity of the crime: life in prison. There was no relief, only finality. But even after the verdict, the impact of Maddie's case did not end. Maddie Clifton's case permanently changed her community. Trust was fractured. Parents questioned assumptions they once believed without hesitation. The idea that danger could come from someone so close became an unshakable reality. Her story became a cautionary tale, not about fear, but awareness. Today, Maddie is remembered not for how she died, but for who she was. Her case continues to be studied by law enforcement as an example of how offenders can hide in plain sight. And while justice was served, the loss remains. Because some answers come too late, and some lessons are learned at an unimaginable cost.